What is going on, everyone? Miko and Bree here with Behavior Analyst Supervisor. Welcome to, I was going to say another installment, but this is not another installment. This is not our first, but it's our first like structured boot camp series. If you are a part of the All You Need, back under the fifth edition, we did some boot camp stuff. Not for every section. We did them for just a few of the sections, some of the more difficult ones. But we've gotten really positive feedback about those courses and decided to do a structured 10-week run through the test content outline. So if you are just starting studying, this is actually a really great place. We recommend taking between 10 and 12 weeks to really prepare for the test. If it's your first time taking it, that changes dependent on, if you've taken it before, where you're at in your studying. Regardless, if you're testing next week, this can be helpful. Full. If you're testing in 10 weeks, this certainly will be helpful. So a lot of different things at play when it comes to that. So that's my first little tidbit. Now, a couple things that I also want to mention. Likely the next time we do this is going to be probably an ongoing thing that we do from here on out. But when we do this in the future, it'll likely be only 5 weeks, and we'll do it twice a week. Just we've gotten some feedback that like, oh, I'm testing sooner, and I would love it to be done quicker. So that's how we'll do that. If you're in the All You Need, it'll be recorded. It'll be accessible to you. We try to do one or two versions of things. No, sorry, two or three versions of different things. So for the next go round, so to speak, we will change out the questions and whatnot. But for this go round, obviously, these are all new questions that either myself or Kevin have written for this. So that's that. Yeah, we'll post the recording tomorrow. It'll be this link you can use. The links actually will change. So just always come back to the info sheet. If you purchase this individually, you'll see the recording and then you'll see the link for the next course. So well, who are we? I'm gonna turn my camera off though, because we have some folks that we work with that have filters on their screens, so that way they can't watch recordings with cameras on. So every now and then we'll turn our cameras off to help kind of accommodate that. So I will turn it back on at the end, or if we have things I need to communicate with the camera on. But cool. If you have questions throughout this, I have it set to where you can only chat the host and yeah, the host, which is me and Bree. So if you have a question, make sure you in your chat, it's going to say disabled, but that's just disabled to the main chat. You can always change it to us and we'll get it answered. The reason we do that is because we've gotten feedback that when people see answers in the chat, it creates a sense of reactivity. And so we want to prevent that to the best of our ability. But at the same time, we want to make sure you get questions answered. If you have questions that you need to verbally ask, save those for the end. So I don't have slide numbers on here. That's what we forgot. In future ones, we'll have slide numbers. But if you have a question about a specific question that we do, try to remember what the question is, and I will bring that up. So that's what we'll do. But other than that, if you have verbal questions you need to ask, please save them for the end. We'll stop at about 9:45 and we'll open up for questions. We will not be taking breaks throughout this. I know it's 2 hours, but we won't take any breaks. Okay, looks like someone has a verbal question now, so we'll just take one.
Yes, so I have the all you need package. Where would the recordings be? Because I get confused. There's just so much stuff in there. So
Yeah,
where would I find?
there's a section in there titled Bootcamp, so everything has a title. You'll see it. There's actually some of the older ones already in there, so you already have some boot camps in there, but they're right on in the course under the section titled Boot Camps.
So this will be bootcamp series number, or like how would I know that this is the current one when I'm trying to find which one was the most recent?
Well, it'll say Bootcamp A.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So let's go ahead and get started. We have a big group here, but we'll try to get to all the questions we can. We like to say people come for the questions, but hopefully they leave learning something. And so that's the goal. We have lots of questions tonight, but we also have some teaching. This is different than Break Down the Beast in that we also do a fair bit of teaching throughout. So, okay. Who are we? Most of you know who we are. Kevin is our founder along with Amy. We also call Amy the Kevin Tamer. If you've been on a Breakdown the Beast with them, you know she's got to keep him on time. Myself, I'm the director of customer support here. We're all BCBAs, and then we have Bree. She's our chat moderator, soon to be BCBA. I can't say that, that's actually unethical. So, soon to be testing for her BCBA exam. Hopefully, she passes. And then she'll be working with us too. So, that's what we have going on here. Yeah, you know who we are. So, cool. Domain A. So domain A has um 8 questions, which we'll go through in a second. It is the smallest area of the test content outline, but it is a it is a important area of the test content outline because it really sets the foundation for a lot of what we're doing. Give me 2 seconds. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm gonna reshare because we added slide numbers. We know that makes it easier. So give me a second. Bear with us. It's night one, so I apologize if there's any technical issues. This will be the only one. Oh, there's slide numbers. Wow, Google's amazing. They populated automatically as soon as I stopped sharing. So, okay. So let me reshare. Boom. Whoops, boom. Okay, cool. So like I said, domain A. They're called domains now, if you didn't know. Fancy. Domain A is the largest area of the test, smallest area of the test content outline. Um, and yeah, we do think it's a very important area because it covers a lot of the foundation. So today it's gonna feel more question heavy than in future ones. In future boot camps, there's gonna be more teaching. There's just not a lot of stuff to teach here. So we're going to lead with a question, and then we'll have the test content item that it comes from, and then we'll have some applied examples. We'll have definitions. We know we've gotten feedback that folks really want definitions. So we've taken all the feedback from all the courses that we've done and put it together. But we have a lot to cover. I wrote like 30 questions for this. We're not going to get through 30, but let's get started since I talk a lot. Again, if you have questions, please chat Bree or myself. You can do the little chat thing. There's 3 dots at the top. You'll click that and you'll click hosts and it will let you send a chat to us. If you try to chat in the main chat, it won't. We had to disable it because we've gotten feedback that folks have reactivity. So there's that. Boom. Question number one. I will read it. Put your answers in the chat. I'll give you 30 seconds to a minute to answer it, and then I'll explain. These are long questions. We've also got feedback that folks really want help dissecting. So again, we're trying to do all of that. One last thing before we get started. These are harder questions. We don't try to put fluff questions in these. So percentage wise, 70% is what we're looking for, but these are all difficult questions. So, okay. You have been tasked with increasing employee satisfaction and retention for a large hotel chain. Upon interviewing employees, you find that working conditions and lack of compassion from management are major concerns. An initial survey found that the average satisfaction score among employees was 25%. You develop an intervention plan focused on environmental modifications to improve working conditions and creating a compassion plan for management. You select a random employee and reconduct the satisfaction survey with them. You find the score reflects 90% satisfaction. You then move the employee to a department that is not utilizing the intervention plan and find that there is a steep decline in their satisfaction score. Which of the following dimensions of applied behavior analysis is most clearly unable to be measured in this scenario? Is it A, the applied dimension? Is it B, the effective dimension? C, the analytic dimension? Or D, the conceptually systematic dimension? Go ahead and put your answers in the chat. Okay, so difficult question to start off with, but I'm not gonna say that all the time because I did say all the questions are tough. So that's my one like caveat. So some of you are changing your answers. Don't change your answers. Most of you who picked the correct answer then changed it. A lot of you picked B and then changed it to D. B is the answer here. You might not know why, and that's okay. I'm gonna tell you why B is the answer, but many of you picked B and switched to D. Don't do that, right? Now there are going to be certain questions where more than one answer fit, but um, we've tried not to do this. You know, I might catch myself, but I'll explain why. But okay, why is it? I like to go through why it's not answers first, and I would recommend you do this as well when you're dissecting questions. But okay, it is not applied, unable to be measured. We can measure the applied dimension, right? Employee satisfaction, probably important, but regardless, can you measure the applied dimension? Yes. This question isn't asking, is it applied or is it not? It's asking, can you measure it? And you can. Same thing with analytic. Analytic is a functional relation. We've done a reversal, right? We have initial, then we have intervention, and then we go ahead and remove the intervention, right? So we can analyze it. Is there a functional relation or not? Maybe, and I'll tell you why I'm saying maybe and not yes, because the data would lead you to believe yes. But let me tell you in just a second why I don't know that we can definitively say yes, but we can measure it. We can measure control. That's what analytics stands for. Conceptually systematic. Are you using the fundamentals of behavior? Well, what are we doing? We did a survey. You develop an intervention plan focused on environmental modifications. That's perfect. Antecedent interventions, improving working conditions, and creating a compassion plan. I don't know what the compassion plan is, but we don't need to add or remove, but soft skills, how people work with other individuals, is an important part of supervision. So that's all good, but I really like the environmental modifications. That's something we should do on a day-to-day basis as behavior analysts. So that's a pretty solid game plan as far as that goes. Now, why can't we measure effective? Well, we have like a group design here, and then we switched to a single subject design. So like I don't know if it was effective because though there was an average, right? Average satisfaction score of 25%, that's group data. When we have group data, we cannot measure individual variances. So you have to see that it says average here. Then we select a random employee and it's 90%. What if that employee was 90% originally and a lot of the other employees were below 90%? I don't know that, so I cannot measure the effectiveness. I can't say yes. I can't say no. I can't measure it. I don't have individual data at the onset for baseline and then when the intervention is removed, right? Um, the second part is good though. You then move the employee to a department not utilizing the intervention. This is good. This is good. I can't say though that it's effective because the initial baseline is a group design. I also like to really reiterate these questions, though this is domain A, they're gonna put things in there from different domains. You have to really know the entire test content outline, regardless of where the question's coming from. So that's why I really emphasize and stress to people, yes, you have to study every section because you need to be taking a holistic approach. Just because your section A might have looked a little bit worse on your score report, if you're not good in section D, you're not getting this question right. You know what I mean? And so that's that really big piece that I want to emphasize here. And we've done that throughout this. But again, one last time, you cannot measure effective because I don't have the individual data at the beginning of the study. I have group data. I have averages. Averages are group data. Group data does not allow us to analyze that individual variance. So there's that. Again, if you have questions, you can chat it. If you have specific questions that it's easier to vocalize, save it for the end. This is slide number 6 or 5, doesn't matter. So slide numbers are here. This comes from A5. If you didn't know, I'm sure you grasped it when we looked at the answer choices. A5 is identify and describe dimensions of applied behavior analysis. I like get a cab, so that's how I put them on here. These are not in order of importance. It's just the what is this called? An anagram? That's not what it's called. What is it called? Oh, Bree doesn't know either. It's whatever. When you put the letters to make it to make oh, I don't know that's acronym either though. Maybe it's acronym. We'll go with it. This is the acronym. Get a CAD. So G is for generality. Generality. This slide we have definitions. The next slide we have examples. So generality, when a skill is able to be generalized across settings, individual, or the skill is able to generalize across settings, individuals. This could be other behaviors. This could be mnemonics. That's what it is. Mnemonic, a memory aid or a mnemonic. So again, pretty simple. I'm not going to stress generality too much. You get the point. It's when you're generalizing. Effective. Effective is represented by a meaningful change in the behavior. Uh, it seems a bit arbitrary, but meaningful is dependent on the individual and the behavior. Now, in order for us to measure or analyze that meaningful change, we have to have data. There has to be data that says we were here and then we went there, and that was a change that was for the better. So again, we need that meaningful change in the behavior. Then we have technological. If a person, think about technological like a recipe. So we've created the intervention in a way that it's like a recipe. Anyone who's able to read it can then go on and implement it. Effective is represented by a meaningful change in the behavior. Or sorry, it's if the program can be read by another individual and implemented with relative ease, this dimension has been met. So if I write an intervention plan, I give it to caregivers, and caregivers are then able to implement that intervention plan. That is a um, technological intervention. Others are able to implement it. It's like a recipe. Applied, ensuring that goals or skills we work on have social significance. Again, social significance relates to the individuals that we're working with. If I'm in a different culture, if I'm working with a different population, the applied dimension might change. For example, one of my first clients as a BCBA, they were professors where we work, and well, the parents were, and they're first generation from China, and they wanted their son to know how to eat with chopsticks. Well, for them, that's applied. For a client that I might work with that has no ties to that culture, using chopsticks would not be applied, right? It depends on a lot of different factors, but we're looking at social significance to that client or individual. Then we have conceptually systematic. Conceptually systematic is ensuring all procedures that we utilize are grounded in reinforcement, extinction, or punishment. Basically, we're using the principles of behavior. They don't just have to be reinforcement, extinction, or punishment. It can be any procedure derived from these. That's everything we do, from token systems to motivating operations to shaping to the Premack principle. All of those different things are grounded in the fundamental principles of behavior. Then we have analytic. Analytic has that C at the end. If you've been around behavior analyst supervisor for a while, you know that Miko, is not a big fan of cheats. I don't think cutting corners helps. I don't think those little tips and tricks that other test prep companies teach you, like the P on partial has a little point down, so that's for decreasing behavior. Those things don't work. It's not right, and I don't like it. So I'm going to tell you C is for control, but it has a C at the end. So that's like the only little one I'm going to use. Analytic, though, is making sure that we can analyze a functional relation. This is verification. This is control. We need to make sure that we can be fairly certain, or we can be definitively certain, that it's the intervention that's causing the change in the behavior and not some other variable. So that's analytic. And then we have behavioral. Behavioral is the one that is very difficult to measure, if I'm being honest, because most things that we look at are behavioral in nature. Behavioral just means that every time we look at a behavior or an intervention, we're making sure that it's observable and measurable. Observable and measurable. Let me do examples and then control. Someone asked control on behavior or intervention. Control is when the intervention changes the behavior. So it's when the independent variable, which is the thing we manipulate, changes the behavior. So that's what control is going to be. Let me do examples, and then if you have questions, we can try to get those answered. But example here, remember though, I will say, if you're part of the all you need, I would recommend saving your questions for tomorrow because the more questions you ask, the less questions we get through. Now, I'm not saying don't ask questions because I want you to ask questions, but um, don't forget you have other avenues to do that. You can email us if you're part of the All You Need. Tomorrow is literally focused on answering people's questions from tonight. So if you purchase this individually, though, you need to ask away. You can also email us. I just want to make sure you're aware of that. Okay, examples. I don't know what my Zoom's doing. Examples. Generality. Generality. Thomas used the DRA to increase functional communication at home with his client. The recent teacher reported that report included a decrease in screaming and an increase in requesting help. So the intervention worked at home and the intervention worked in the clinic. The intervention worked at home and the intervention worked at school, I should say, not the clinic. So it's generalizing across two settings. Effective. Harley smoked about a pack. Try again. Harley smoked about a pack a day before working with the behavior analyst. After self-management was used, she now smokes a single cig a day. So going from a pack a day to a single cigarette is probably effective, right? What do they say? A cigarette takes like 10 minutes off your life. So I have literally zero clue how many cigarettes are in a pack, but she's making an effective change, right? Effective change. All right, technological. During caregiver training, you see the caregivers implementing the SIB procedure with 100% fidelity. The intervention is being implemented by someone else. That means it's technological. Applied, Lisa engages in spitting and mouthing behavior. You have determined that hand washing is an effective skill to work on. If she engages in behavior that is contrary to hygiene, then we are working on increasing those hygiene skills. That is important to them, socially significant. Conceptually systematic, you discuss switching the usage of a weighted blanket with a client to utilizing a token system, followed by tangible reinforcement. So we're using this is a non-example. So weighted blanket, sorry, switching from a weighted blanket to a token system. That is conceptually systematic. Weighted blankets, this is going to help you later on, so remember this. Weighted blankets actually don't have a grounding. There's no research in behavior analysis that they're effective at reducing behaviors. Personally, I do like weighted blankets. I think they have a tool for like OT and stuff like that, but in behavior analysis, there's no current research pointing that out. Analytic. Let's look back at the pack a day. So Harley smoked a pack a day before self-management. After the procedure, she smoked a cig a day. When we discontinued it, then she went back to a pack a day. So we have those three demonstrations, interventions in place. We removed it, we put it back. That's analytic. Cool. Okay. Questions on your end, Bree? Cool. I don't have any questions over here. Someone did ask if there's going to be like learning materials attached with this. Just the recording. Unfortunately, our copyright policy doesn't allow downloads of the PowerPoint, and I don't currently have any like handouts. So next. Oh, okay. Now that you've done one, this is the format. So it'll be scenario question, it'll be definitions, and then it will be examples, and then we'll move to another scenario question. There's only 5 like this, and then we do random questions. Section B has like 23. So when we're doing section B next week, there's going to be a whole lot more teaching, just so you're aware. But does everyone like this format? Is this okay? To be honest with you, I probably won't change it before next week, but I will take your feedback into consideration for the next one. But just making sure we do appreciate the format. Thumbs up. There we go. Come on. You could do the thumbs up emoji, I guess. It's good. Cool. Oh yeah, I see it. 5 thumbs up. Okay, great format. Good. All right, we'll keep it. Even if you said you didn't, we probably still would keep it. But here we are. Okay, let's get focus, people. Focus. Hercules attended ABA therapy for 14 consecutive weeks. He has recently developed the prerequisite skills needed for toilet training. During the initial few sessions in which toilet training was targeted, his behavior analyst noticed that he struggled with hand washing due to the height of the soap dispenser. To help mitigate this, the behavior analyst placed a bottle of soap on the counter directly next to the faucet. This modification resulted in a tremendous increase in appropriate hand washing behavior. This scenario seems to have focused on A, taking a parsimonious approach, B, making decisions based on an empirical approach, C, taking a pragmatic approach, or D, utilizing determinism to determine why hand washing was needed. Okay. I figure the amount of time you need on the question is the amount of time it takes myself and Bree to poke through all the different chat things. This new chat feature on Zoom is absolutely ridiculous. I'm about to get on call with support. It's not effective if I can bring it back to what we're talking about. Anyhow, maybe it is for some people, not for me. The answer here is A, taking a parsimonious approach. Y'all, I do talk to myself throughout this, so like if I'm annoying to, I apologize. I will get to the point, I promise. If you ever need me to explain something again because I have ADD, then just chat. Just let me know. I'll explain it again, I promise. Anyhow, we're taking a parsimonious approach. We've made an environmental manipulation, right? That's one of those things that you want to look for in the question. It's the point of emphasis here. What did we do? He's having trouble washing his hands. So what do we do? Let's lower the height of the soap dispenser. We're not doing anything crazy. We're not making a lot of changes. We're not implementing a big, long intervention plan. We're simply modifying the environment. That's parsimony. If it's hard to wash your hands because the soap is too high, then lowering the soap could make a difference. That's a parsimonious approach. Parsimony is taking the simplest explanation, the simplest explanation. Let's look at the other answers. Making a decision based on an empirical approach. Well, what is empiricism? Empiricism is using the data as well as taking a biased free approach. I'm not really looking at the data here. I'm seeing that during the first few sessions, we noticed him struggling. I don't know the percentage. I don't know if it was all errors. There's not a whole lot of information that is known here. And so, empiricism doesn't fit. You need data for empiricism. Taking a pragmatic approach. Pragmatic, think about practical. You do something that's practical because it works. Pragmatism would be if I use a forward chaining procedure with a client that is similar to this client, and then I utilize forward chaining with this client. That is a pragmatic approach. A pragmatic approach. Um, so here we're not doing something that has worked in the past. We're taking a simplistic or a parsimonious approach. So it doesn't fit pragmatism. Determinism is the lawfulness of behavior. All behavior occurs for a reason. Determinism would say something like you engage in this behavior because, so if it says you struggle with hand washing and we need to work on hand washing because your hands are always dirty, or we're explaining something along the lines of why the behavior is occurring or why you're working on the behavior, then I'm okay with picking uh, determinism. But that's not the focus here. So determinism doesn't fit this answer. Doesn't fit. So let's look at it. Hopefully I can make this a little bit more clear for you. This is from A2. A2 is explain the philosophical assumptions underlying the science of behavior analysis. If I had a big red buzzer that I could sound right now, I would, because EG is here. This caused and still causes a lot of confusion. We've actually been called a poor test prep company on Facebook because of this, and it's annoying to me. E.g., someone said, well, behavior analyst supervisor adds things that aren't on the task list. The task list has selectionism, determinism, empiricism, parsimony, pragmatism. Well, this includes other things. Like we include the three branches of selectionism. We include experimentation. We include philosophic doubt. E.g. means there's other things, or E.g. actually means like an example. I actually don't know what EG means, but it means there's more stuff there. I think it's an example, right? Or IE is an example. EG just means there could be other things there. Let's say that. I don't like to call it the essence of the code, but it just tells you that there are other things that aren't explicitly listed that you could be tested on and likely will. Back when I studied, it was the fourth edition, and it was like the seven assumptions of the science. And then the fifth edition, it went down to six. So then people called it the six assumptions. And now it's one, two, three, four, five. And so it creates a lot of contention, first off, but confusion, second off. So when you see this, EG or IE, you'll see both. Just know there are other things that could be here. In our study guide and in our course, we do try to cover them. We also do write questions about those other things. So it's important to know it. These are just examples. Um, okay, cool. Hope that makes sense. That's my spiel. Selectionism. There are three branches of selectionism. Hold on 2 seconds. Okay, so three branches of selectionism. There is cultural selectionism, ontogenic selectionism, and phylogenetic selectionism. Let's talk about each. Cultural selectionism adapting based upon those around you. I'll go through examples next, but adapting based upon those around you. Ontogenic is our evolutionary history. No, sorry, I have those mixed up, so that's my apologies. Phylogenetic is our evolutionary history. Ontogenic is selection based upon consequences. So phylogenetic, evolutionary history, ontogenic, selection based upon consequences. Bree's gonna make that edit for me. My apologies. Ontogenic is a result of ontogeny. Ontogeny is selection based upon consequences. Phylogeny is Darwinism or evolution. It's things you can't change. This is related to respondent behavior. Respondent behavior. Those are the three branches of selectionism. Then we have determinism. Determinism is the lawfulness of behavior. Determinism states all behavior occur for a reason. The AKA is the lawfulness of behavior. You'll see both of those. Then we have empiricism. This is the philosophical understanding that we make decisions that are free of bias and based on the data gathered during the observation. So we're not making judgments, we're not making opinionated decisions. We are looking at the data and we're making decisions solely based upon that. Parsimony and pragmatism, the two that get confused the most. Parsimony is the simplest explanation. This, most of the time, is utilizing an environmental manipulation or an antecedent intervention. It's not always an environmental manipulation, but a lot of times it's just like, hey, if you don't want someone to do this, if I don't want people to text, take their phone away. If I don't want you to so, right, if I don't want you to speed on my golf cart, I'm gonna put a governor on the speed thing so you can't go over a certain speed limit. I only know that because I know how to bypass the governor at golf course. You put a T in it and go way faster, but that's for a different day. That's a different class. But right, so parsimony, simplest explanation. Pragmatism. Pragmatism is similar. It's like a cousin to parsimony, but it's different in the fact that a pragmatic approach is one that does what works. Think about pragmatism, practicality. It's utilizing interventions or information that we have or have previously gathered and doing what's worked best. So think about this as taking like a holistic approach, kind of looking at what interventions have worked previously, and that's going to be that pragmatic approach. I'll go through examples and then I'll explicitly give a couple of examples about the difference between pragmatism and parsimony. If my slides will change, and they will. Selectionism. You can tell me which branch of selectionism this is from. So drop it in the chat. Skin tones of civilizations that are closer to the equator tend, not always, but they tend to be darker than that of those further from the equator. What branch of selectionism would that fall under? Lots of things in the chat, and lots of people saying this is phylogenetic. You're right. We cannot control our skin tone unless you tan, then you might be able to make yourself darker. But for the most part, right, skin tone is not necessarily something we can control. If you look at data, skin tone's closer to the equator because you get more sun there, or actually darker than those in like Antarctica. For the most part, there's caveats, but this is something you can't control. So phylogenetic. Cultural selectionism. That's funny. Someone said unless you're Michael Jackson. Anyhow, cultural selectionism. This is like Bree, for example, right? Bree's from Florida. We met in Michigan. Of course, Bree wears the maize and blue now because she hangs out with a lot of us Michigan fans. We're kind of like a cult, but if you're adapting to those around you, right? If I go to Chicago, I'm gonna have a Chicago style hot dog. That's just what you do in Chicago. There's no history of reinforcement. I've never been to Chicago before. I have, but you get the point. If you haven't, there's no history of reinforcement and you're adapting to those around you. That's cultural selectionism. Cultural selectionism. All right, determinism. Demands were placed at triple the rate of a typical session when the new behavior therapist started. The client engaged in triple the amount of escape maintained behaviors. This can be attributed to the increase in demands. Well, this is the why the behavior occurred. The why the behavior occurred. Empiricism, you take a neutral approach and always have a healthy bit of skepticism. This is called philosophic doubt. Philosophic doubt just means that we're looking at the data and we're not making decisions We're not always trusting what we're told. We're testing things. So you're having a healthy bit of skepticism when determining if the intervention will work. You allow the data to do the talking. That is empiricism. Parsimony. To encourage caregivers to pick up clients on time, you require that they remain at the clinic for the entire duration of therapy. This is funny because I was talking with my friend and they said for the first time ever, this has never happened, but now they have two clients that their caregivers want to stay at the clinic and be with them for the entire session. Like, I know that that should, I don't know why, but I just think it's a little strange. I know we're in a culture or a society that's not as trusting as it used to be, but like, you're hopefully you can trust the place you're sending your kids, and if you can't, at an ABA clinic, then maybe you shouldn't send them there first. Secondly, it's very hard to pair, right? Even in-home therapy, during that pairing process, you want to like have the caregivers go to a different room. But okay, sorry, let me get back to teaching. Parsimony, you can't pick up late if you are there, right? So we're preventing that ability for late pickup. Pragmatism. When a new skill is being taught to Wilson, a token system has typically proven effective for expediting behavior change in the past. You'd like to teach him how to tie new shoes and decide to utilize a token system as well. So we're doing what has worked. Token systems have proven effective. Let's do it again. That's pragmatic. Just one quick real life example to really separate the two. I use this example a lot, so if you've been here, I apologize, but I really think it hits home. Parsimony, if I want to lose weight, I stop eating. Okay, cool. Probably not healthy, not something you necessarily should do, but it's gonna work. If you don't eat at first, you're gonna lose weight. Pragmatic. A pragmatic approach or pragmatism would be if I need to lose 5 pounds, and previously I've done a keto diet and dropped 5 pounds. And so before my cruise, I do another keto diet to lose those extra 5 pounds. That's pragmatic. Parsimony is simple, not always the best thing or healthy, but it's the simplest explanation. Pragmatism is doing what's worked for us in the past. Cool. All right, did I get everything answered there? Solid. Cool. Next question. Latasha engages in escape maintained elopement behavior. The behavior occurs at rates of 5 to 10 instances per day. An FDA was conducted 2 weeks ago, and the behavior analyst has implemented FCT to help establish and reinforce replacement behaviors. She notices that elopement also occurred when the client was in an environment where loud noises were present. She explained to the caregivers that the client is likely sensory seeking. This statement most closely resembles a hypothetical construct, an explanatory fiction, circular reasoning, or radical behaviorism. All right, I'm done clicking through all the answers. The answer here, these are one of those ones again, right? That like when we look at the code, this is not explicitly listed, but they fall under that same category of radical versus methodological behaviorism. You have to know what your hypothetical constructs, explanatory fiction, and circular reasoning are. If you don't know those things, then it's going to be difficult to get questions in this area right. So um, we always like to point those things out. The answer here, though, the best answer is A. So it's always important to answer the question being asked. If you don't take any other test taking tip away from tonight, that's probably, honestly, the most important test taking tip is really answering the question being asked. This here, sensory seeking. This is statement. This is the statement, right? The statement is the client is likely sensory seeking. So, sensory seeking itself, that's what we're looking at. We're just looking at what's in quotations because this is the statement. It'll tell you because it's in quotations. That is a hypothetical construct. A hypothetical construct is an unobservable characteristic, right? This is pride. This is jealousy. This is autism. This is ADD. Sure, we can say those things exist, or we can agree that they likely exist, but uh, they're not observable, they're not measurable, and they don't do anything to help us analyze or modify behavior, right? They don't. So those are hypothetical constructs. Now, the reason these are tricky is because A, B, and C all play into each other. A hypothetical construct is the unobservable characteristic. An explanatory fiction is when we take the unobservable characteristic and we use it to explain a behavior. If we say, now, if this quotation said she's eloping because she's seeking attention or seeking sensory inputs, that would be that would be an explanatory fiction. So we're taking the hypothetical construct, which is sensory seeking, and we're using it to explain behaviors. That's the explanatory fiction. There we have that. Circular reasoning. Circular reasoning is when we do this in a circular fashion. So you're sensory seeking because you're eloping for items, and you're eloping for items because you're sensory seeking. You have autism because you aggress, and we know you aggress because you have autism. You have ADD because you bounce around, and you bounce around because you have ADD. It's using these two in that circular fashion, right? That's going to be your circular reasoning, circular reasoning. Um, then we have radical behaviorism. Radical behaviorism is when we look at a behavior, or sorry, radical behaviorism is Skinner's far-reaching analysis of behavior that took into account both public and private events. Now, we're not using those public and private events to describe behavior, but I will say, like, okay, cool, a headache could cause X, Y, or Z behavior. Oh, a toothache could cause you not to eat as much. A stomach ache could cause whatever behaviors, right? Uh, it also allows us to calculate thought as behavior. So that's radical behaviorism. But let's dive a little bit deeper. This is A3, explain behavior from the perspective of a radical behaviorist or of radical behaviorism. Now, there's a few things that I think is important to mention here. Number one, when I look at this, there's absolutely no mention of methodological behaviorism. But clearly, you need to know methodological behaviorism to discriminate radical behaviorism. So when you're looking at the test content outline, I'm pointing this out just so you're kind of aware of how you need to be studying. You're not just looking at the exact test content outline thing that's listed. You want to look at related concepts as well, because the board wants you to discriminate between these related concepts. Radical behaviorism, you have to know what methodological is. Radical behaviorism, you have to know what hypothetical constructs, explanatory fictions, and circular reasoning are, so you can avoid them. Those are all important things to think through. Radical behaviorism. This is Skinner's far-reaching branch of behaviorism that incorporated both public and private events. Skinner's branch allowed us to account for these factors or account for factors other than environmental as causes of behavior. So Skinner's far-reaching branch of radical behaviorism allowed us to take into account those thoughts, those environmental variables, as well as how you might be feeling, so to speak, right? From there, we have methodological behaviorism. Methodological behaviorism was coined by Watson. It only accounts for how behaviors occur in relation to the naturally occurring environment around them. So, methodological behaviorism, John Watson, this said all behavior can be analyzed by looking at the direct environment. Only the things we can observe, only the things we can see. We know that's not the case. There's a lot of things that cause behavior to occur. Hypothetical constructs, this is an unobservable characteristic, unobservable characteristic. Explanatory fictions, this is someone said real quick, just while we're on hypothetical constructs. Someone said, is the answer a hypothetical construct because they are using autistic characteristics? No, I would argue that there's no such thing as an autistic characteristic because everyone is going to engage in slightly different behaviors. That the answer to that question, and I'll go back to it, is hypothetical construct because we're talking about sensory seeking. Sensory seeking is not something that is well defined, right? This is an unobservable characteristic. I might say instead, right, I might say you're eloping in order to access a teddy bear or to access a chewy or to access, like I'm explaining in observable and measurable terms why that behavior is happening. So, see ya. I'll post the recording tomorrow. Have a good evening. Okay, and then we have explanatory fiction. This is taking an unobservable characteristic and utilizing it to explain how or why behavior occurs. So again, we take that hypothetical construct and we use it to explain behavior. And then circular reasoning, y'all know this is using it in that circular fashion. You do this because of that, and we know you do that because of this, right? It's a circular explanation. Our examples: radical behaviorism. Thomas has engaged in an increased frequency and duration of tantrum behavior after consulting with the medical team. It was determined that his chronic headaches play a major role in the increase in behavior, right? So we're taking into account headaches, we're ruling out those medical variables. If we were using methodological behaviorism, we would say, well, like maybe the sun is causing you, so let's just stay inside. Well, you're probably still gonna have headaches, but methodological behaviorism wouldn't account for that. Then we look at methodological behaviorism. When analyzing the cause of elopement, you take a look at the direct environmental variables that preceded the behavior and utilize those as potential causes. So I'm only looking at the direct environmental variables, nothing else. A hypothetical construct, we've already went through these, so autism, sadness, proud, jealousy, you get the point. Unobservable characteristics. Explanatory fiction, Marco is smart because he got an A on his test. Circular reasoning, Marco is smart because he got an A on his test, and we know he got an A on his test because he is smart. Pro tip for all you parents, this is something I'm challenging myself to do. Did you know smart, right? This is not something that's observable or measurable. So when you tell a child that they're smart and then they struggle with the test, then they think they're not smart. And so they might give up. Whereas what we can say instead, or what I might challenge you to do, is look at the characteristics. Hey, you work so hard. You keep trying even when things are difficult, right? So, pro tip, I got an 18-month-old, y'all. I'm trying to listen to those parenting podcasts, give it to you how it is. We're all doing our best, right? Trying to figure it out, but that's your. Did you know you were getting a parenting tip when you came here tonight? I don't know, but you did. All right. No questions, Bree. Cool. Let's keep rolling then. Uh, 3 instances of loud vocalizations have occurred over the past 4 hours. The sound produced 32 decibels over safe sound levels. This has occurred frequently during today's session. You have reviewed a recording of the client to gather data on how often the behavior occurred. I should say during, sorry, occurred during the initial assessment. You then implemented a DRA which reinforced requesting behavior. You do this 4 sessions. After those 4 sessions completed, you discontinue the DRA. You notice when reinforcement is provided, the behavior was 50% lower than when it was not. You have not A, adequately described the behavior, B, adequately predicted the behavior, C, adequately provided control for the behavior, or D, adequately selected and applied behavioral issue. All right. I know I promised I wouldn't say this, but we got another hard question here. This certainly is difficult. Uh, Everyone had different answers. There's certainly not, I don't even think there's a favorite answer here. Everyone kind of was literally all over the board. Every answer was selected. So let's work backwards and say why the other ones don't work. So uh, you have not, first and foremost, this is negation. You have not. So did we describe the behavior? Well, yeah, we described loud vocalizations. We even have a decibel meter, right? So you would need a decibel meter, but regardless, you can analyze what this behavior looks like because you have that decibel meter. So we've described it. Um, so we have done that. So we get rid of this, right? Because negation, you figure out what you have done, you're left with whatever. Have we predicted the behavior? Let's see. You reviewed the recording, you then implemented a DRA. After sessions completed, you discontinue the DRA. You notice reinforcement was provided, the behavior was 50% lower. I don't see a prediction. Did I say how much the behavior would occur? I don't think so. So I like B so far. So I'm going to say maybe. Then we'll look at C. Provided control. Well, we did, right? We have control here. You know what it is, 32 decibels over. You implement a DRA and the behavior reduces, right? You do this for 4 sessions. After those 4 sessions, you discontinue. You notice reinforcement was 50% lower when it was was lower than when it was not. So we know when the DRA, which is reinforcement, that the behavior was lower than when it was not. You've implemented it, you've taken baseline, you removed the intervention because you discontinued it. So we have provided control. Applied. Yeah, this is definitely an applied issue, right? 32 decibels over, this could cause sound damage, hearing damage. What was going on here? This could cause hearing damage, and so it's certainly something that's applied. It's something that's meaningful. We've not predicted it, and this is where you just need to know kind of what these concepts look like in practice because the applied piece is the important piece. So prediction is we use correlation, so we look at what has happened, which for the 4 sessions we've had sound over 32 decibels. If I say, oh, likely during the 5th session, we're going to have sound 32 decibels over, that is going to be prediction. So we certainly don't have prediction here. It's not in this question. We haven't formulated a prediction. So all of these stand alone. If you've been taught or you're under the thought process that you need one to have the other, not necessarily. You need to look at the question and see what's in the question. They can certainly stand alone. We haven't predicted anything here. We've tested it. We've developed control. We can produce a prediction. This doesn't say what you cannot. It says what you have not. Those are two different things. So we have not predicted. We can predict it, but we just haven't. So let's look at what these are. This falls under A1, identify the goals of behavior analysis as a science. This is, and again, an example. Description, prediction, control. You could also have affirmation of the consequent, which we do cover in the next slide. But description, this is measurable and observable analysis of behavior in direct proximity to the behavior. So basically, this is, or the environment in direct proximity. So this is literally describing what the behavior looks like. It's what does the behavior look like? That scenario had the 32 decibels over the sound thing, so that gives you that. Prediction. This requires correlation and is established by looking at past events and providing a hypothesis for what will occur in the future. The key is that there must be an analysis of prior events that enable us to predict the behavior will occur again as it has in the past. So prediction requires correlation. We'll get into this later, but correlation doesn't always cause causation, but certainly it requires correlation. Correlation means because something has happened in the past, I can be relatively certain it's going to happen in the future. Prediction is not. Prediction is not. Hold on 2 seconds. Prediction is not saying I'm going to win the lottery tomorrow. Does the lottery play on Tuesdays? I have no clue. Did I buy a lottery ticket? No. Do I play, or sorry, have I won the lottery in the past? No. Prediction requires correlation. Prediction requires correlation. And then control is a functional relation or verification, depending on the experimental design. Um, Depending on the experimental design, control is determined differently, but all control is it's saying, hey, we implemented an intervention. We know it works because without the intervention, the behavior was lower, and then we used it, the behavior was better, and then we removed it, and the behavior was lower, or something like that, right? Does prediction include the intervention? I'm not totally sure what that question means. Prediction could say that when I implement, okay, for example, potty training. I've done a lot of potty training. I know that when I implement potty training, accidents are going to increase initially because there's no diaper, right? So like, and there's going to be more accidents. So if I say when we do potty training, accidents will increase, that's a prediction because there was that previous history of accidents increasing with potty training. Affirmation of the consequent, the most confusing one, doesn't come up a whole lot, but you might need it, and so let's do it. The predictive power of steady state responding enables the behavior analyst to employ a form of indicative knowledge known as affirmation of the consequent. This is from the Pennyacre article from 1980. I like this definition or that statement better than the Cooper book, but Pennypacker, if you haven't read some of the articles from Pennypacker, they're really good, very, very smart behavior analyst. Anyhow, psychologist, because this is before behavior analytics was fancy. The reasoning behind affirmation of the consequent begins with a true antecedent consequent. This is directly from the Cooper book. If A, then B statement and proceeds as follows. If A is true, then B is true. B is found to be true, therefore A is true. When we look at our behavior analytic approach, it's basically saying if the independent variable is controlling the behavior and the behavior and the data shows that when the independent variable is in place, the behavior has changed. And then we actually test it, right? So when the independent variable is present, the data shows the behavior has changed. Therefore, the independent variable is controlling the behavior. Super confusing. But if I say a behavior is attention maintained, so if a behavior is attention maintained, then it will happen during the attention condition, and then I do an FA and the behavior occurs during the attention condition, then I can say that the behavior is attention maintained. If a behavior is attention maintained, then it will occur during the attention condition. If the behavior happens during the attention condition in an FA, then the behavior is attention maintained. That's all affirmation of the consequent is for us. It's when we have prediction, description, and control. So you need all of them in order to achieve that affirmation of the consequent. All right, description. Here's our examples. Essex engages in aggression in the form of hitting with an open hand that makes an audible sound when contact with another individual is made. Pretty clearly defined what exactly the behavior looks like, even included the audible sound. Prediction. Over the last 5 days, when Memphis transitioned into the clinic, he began to scream. Immediately upon passing the kitchen area, we have since prepared his team that he is likely going to begin to scream on Monday when he passes the kitchen area. So we have correlation. There's 5 days in a row. He passed this area. He's going to begin to scream. If nothing changes and we pass the area on Monday, it's likely that he's going to scream. That's prediction. Control, you've collected a full range of assessment data. This allowed you to determine that elopement is escape maintained, as the behavior did not occur during the control, access, or attention condition, but occurred 8 times during the demand condition, which represents the escape condition. And then affirmation of the consequent, I just gave you an example, but here it is again. If we hypothesize the behavior is attention maintained and the behavior occurs during the attention condition, then that behavior must be attention maintained. That's all it is. I hope that makes it a little more clear. All right. So what we've done so far is we went through literally every area of section A, A1 through 5. We had some scenario questions. Now, this part is going to feel different than all of the rest of the boot camps. So I'm just preparing you for that. The next 30 minutes before we open up for questions is going to feel more like break down the beast. And that's because there's only 5 teaching areas in section or domain A. The rest of the domains, it's going to be teaching, or it's going to be question, teaching examples, question, teaching examples for the whole 2 hours. Tonight is just a little different. So I hope that's okay with you. I know everybody loves doing question dissection, so hope I adequately taught these and we can test your knowledge now. Oh, sorry, this is the last teaching one. save that speech that I just made for after this. So this is the last one, and then it's question dissection. Sorry. All right. Finn is an 8-year-old Labradoodle who's extremely friendly and energetic. He has a history of eloping from the garage whenever the door is open. This is a true story. And has previously traveled as far as 3 miles from home. Also true. Finn serves as the family's therapy animal, and is an important member of the household. The family has enlisted your support to develop an intervention plan aimed at reducing this elopement behavior. The plan includes environmental manipulations, skill acquisition procedures, and reactionary strategies. You provide training to the family and ensure proper implementation of the plan and conduct regular follow ups to monitor progress. The family's role best fits A, applied behavior analysis, B, the experimental analysis of behavior, C, behaviorism, or D, professional practice guided by the science of behaviorism. Yep, D is correct. This is professional practice guided by the science of behaviorism, also known as behavior service delivery. Those are AKAs. Um, yeah, but basically, this is talking about the family's role. The family's role is the implementation of the intervention. The implementation of interventions falls under professional practice. Applied behavior analysis is the creation of the plans, the creation of the plans. Uh, Experimental analysis of behavior is in a laboratory setting, typically, not always, but it's like research driven, not necessarily applied behaviors somewhere in that kind of laboratory-ish setting. Behaviorism is everything we do. I always get asked, what is behaviorism? Well, all of these branches fit under behaviorism. Behaviorism is just the theory of behavior. It's how the principles of behavior work to modify behavior. This question says you provide the family training to ensure proper implementation. The family's role best fits professional practice. They're implementing the plan. If it said the behavior analyst role, then it would be applied behavior analysis. Um, but that is going to give us D, professional practice. So, cool. That's that. Let's go ahead and look at where this falls under. A4, distinguish among behaviorism, the experimental analysis of behavior, applied behavior analysis, and professional practice guided by the science of behavior analysis. Behaviorism, again, this is the theoretical foundation upon which our science is built. It emphasizes the study of observable, measurable behavior and seeks to explain behavior in terms of environmental determinants rather than unobservable mental events. So we're looking at how the environment causes the behaviors to change. That is what behaviorism is. The experimental analysis of behavior, this is the branch of behaviorism that focuses on research clinical and structured analysis of the principles of behavior. So typically it's in research, could be super clinical. It's not necessarily looking at how applied or socially significant behaviors change. Applied behavior analysis, the branch of behaviorism that focuses on the creation of these interventions targeted at changing socially significant behaviors. The key is the creation of these plans, right? So if you're creating the plans, you're practicing applied behavior analysis. Whereas professional practice or behavior service delivery, this is the implementation of the plans created under applied behavior analysis branch. It's also known as behavior service delivery, like I said. So creation of the plans. An example, because everyone always asks for an example of behaviorism, could be anything. Every example fits, right? If you're using the principles of behavior, you observe your client raise their hand more frequently when you provide praise. You begin consistently providing verbal praise each time the client does it, and as a result, the behavior increases over time. So again, you're just using the principles of behavior here, studying them, theorizing, analyzing, looking at them. The experimental analysis of behavior, you would like to analyze the impact of conditional discrimination training on therapy animals in a hospital setting. So could be applied in that specific setting, but theoretically, it's not necessarily applied. You're looking at the impacts of the discrimination training on the therapy animals in that kind of very clinical setting. We're not looking at like a client that you're working with or something like that. Applied behavior analysis. After completion of a full range of FBA procedures, you determine that spitting is maintained by access to tangibles. You create an intervention plan that establishes functional communication in the form of requesting more time with the tangible and also requesting the item back. So again, we're creating a plan based upon creating a plan based upon a socially significant behavior. That's ABA. It's the creation of the plan. Again, ABA could be a creation of a plan as well with like a organization, because for an organization, maybe employees showing up to work on time might be socially significant. So applied doesn't just mean a kid with autism. It means creation of plans for socially significant behaviors. We talked about applied. Applied depends on the culture, the individual. So for an organization, some things might be applied, whereas they might not for me or for you, right? And then professional practice, this is taking an intervention plan to teach to the two behavior techs on the case how to implement the procedure. They both achieve 80% or greater on fidelity checks for the intervention plan. So if they know how to adequately implement the intervention plan, then that gives us professional practice, right? Um, cool. All right, that's the teaching points for tonight. We still have time, obviously, so we're going to go through some question dissection. Like I said, this is going to feel more like Break Down the Beast, which, fun fact, we do have a Break Down the Beast this Sunday. So if you're interested in joining that, let me know. Break Down the Beast is basically just question dissection. I don't have the teaching slides. I don't go through examples necessarily. I do explain the question, but it's 3 to 4 hours of just dissecting questions. Whereas our bootcamp series is meant more of like a studying launching point and continual applied practice of the concepts. But the next 30 minutes, we'll just cover some questions. So without further ado, let's do it. Why is this question so long, Nico? I don't know, but I'm going to read it for you. Vance provides supervisory oversight to 12 direct support professionals employed within a residential group home setting. Over an extended period, staff members have demonstrated a pattern of attendance-related maladaptive behaviors, including tardiness, last-minute callouts, and non-attendance without prior notification, no call, no show. To address this performance deficit, Vance implemented an experimental reinforcement contingency with 2 staff members, utilizing a point system in which personnel accrued points for consecutive instances of punctual arrival. The response to reinforcer contingency was structured such that the magnitude of reinforcement increased as the number of consecutive on-time days accumulated, thereby establishing a progressive ratio-like schedule. The procedure produced a functionally significant and sustained increase in the target behavior, resulting in 100% attendance for both participants across a 3-month intervention phase. Based on these empirically derived outcomes, Vance elected to systematically extend the intervention to the remaining staff members. In doing so, he is abiding by A, cultural selectionism, B, parsimony, C, experimentation, or D, pragmatism. I'll give you some tips on what to do with extremely hard, long questions with these challenging vocabulary here in a second. All right, so the answer to this one, this is not necessarily a hard question. It's tricky because there's a lot of information. There is a boatload of information. But when you have these really, really long scenario-based questions, there's a couple things that I want you to do. Number one, we do recommend starting with the last sentence first. The last sentence has what the question's asking. So you want to make sure you're looking at that. The second thing that you want to do is you want to go sentence by sentence, analyzing does that sentence play into what the question's asking. So here, the question says, in doing so, he is abiding by what? Well, in doing what? What did he do here? And we want to look at the end of that scenario. He is systematically extending the intervention to the remaining staff members. So in doing that, what has he achieved? Well, he's doing what has worked, right? So he's achieved pragmatism. He's achieved pragmatism. Um, he's taking the results of his intervention or his study, right? And he's using those results across participants. He's taking that pragmatic approach, that pragmatic approach. Um, So that's kind of what we're doing there. Now, when we look at the other answers, cultural selectionism is when we have, um, when we're changing our behavior based upon those around us. We're not changing our behavior based upon those around us in this question. We are taking what has worked and we are then using it in a pragmatic way. We're using it in a pragmatic way, taking what has worked. Parsimony, simplest explanation. It's not. We don't have the simplest explanation here. We've actually done a whole long slew of interventions or slew of testing, I guess, in order to see what works. Experimentation. There is experimentation in this question, but the key is that he's electing to extend the intervention to the remaining staff. That becomes pragmatism. If it said in testing if something worked or not. That would be pragmatism. But here, it's a whole, you want to look at the question as a whole, and you want to look at what he's doing. He's using the results to then take that intervention and generalize it. So it has that pragmatic approach. That's the tricky part. All right, let's look at the next one. You design a behavioral intervention procedure intended to systematically increase the maximum load an Olympic athlete is able to power clean. The procedure begins with a task analysis that deconstructs the complex motor sequence of the power clean into component responses that can be taught and reinforced sequentially. The protocol incorporates a graduated performance shaping paradigm in which the response requirement is incrementally increased according to the data-based progression criterion that ensures response generalization and maintenance performance success. By structuring the environment and contingencies to promote successive approximations toward the terminal behavior goal, you are practicing applied behavior analysis, professional practice guided by the science of behavior analysis, the experimental analysis of behavior, or behaviorism. Super good job. Almost every single person selected A. There were a couple that did not, so don't feel alone if you didn't. But we were certainly in majority agreement that A is the correct answer here, and I also agree that A is the best answer here. So, right, look at here. You design a behavioral intervention procedure intended to systematically increase by structuring the environment and contingencies to promote successive approximations. Structuring the environment and contingencies is creating the plan and setting the plan up. Successive approximations is shaping, systematically increasing is shaping. You're going to see shaping used, you're going to see these bigger, kind of more scientific words used. We want to make sure that you're prepared for both. But right, designing the intervention, systematically increase, and then you come down here, structuring the environment and contingencies to promote these successive approximations. You're creating the plan. You also have to remember when it says when you're approaching this question, you are a behavior analyst. So you want to look at the question as if you are a behavior analyst. That's an important feature. But that's what we have here. We have the applied behavior analysis. Professional practice would be you implementing the shaping procedure. So if it said you are the one that is teaching the Olympic lifter or whoever this is to lift more more weight or whatever the case is, that would be a professional practice. EAB is experimental analysis. So if you're studying how task analysis can be used to increase the amount of weight lifted, then that would be EAB. Why is this not EAB? Because let's see. Well, I think a couple things. Number one, for an Olympic athlete, this is going to be socially significant, but secondarily, it's really focusing on the creation of the plan when we look at this scenario. So if we look at the question as a whole, it's really focusing on that creation of the plan. And then you have behaviorism. It is definitely behaviorism, but you want to pick the most specific answer. So if you have the most specific answer possible, that's going to give you that correct answer. So tricky, maybe not tricky, but it's just wordy. These wordy, lengthy questions can get a little bit tricky in nature. So, um, cool. All right, let's look at the next one. This 100% is accurate too. Miko is colloquially described as a football junkie, exhibiting a high frequency, high intensity pattern of engagement with football related stimuli across multiple temporal interventions, including, I loved writing this question by the way, Mondays, Thursdays, Fridays, extended durations on Saturdays and Sundays, and the occasional midweek MACtion games on Wednesdays. If you don't know about the MAC, you gotta know. When not facilitating BAS events, obviously, like Break Down the Beast this Sunday. Over the past 3 years, the latency to initiate lawn maintenance has progressively increased, while the corresponding environmental variable, which is the length of the grass, has also increased during the fall months. Uh, which temporally coincide with football season. Anticipating this reoccurring behavioral trend, his wife states, "Honey, since football season is upon us, and the lawn will begin to look unruly, I've hired a lawn care company." The wife's verbal behavior best represents control, prediction, description, or affirmation of the consequence. All right. So nice job. We are in agreement again that prediction fits best, and I would agree. Prediction is the correct answer here. Why is it prediction? Well, we're talking about correlation, right? Over the past 3 years, we're talking about what has happened in the past, and then she's making a statement that this is going to happen again. It's very true. We also did actually hire a lawn care company this year, but football takes priority. I'm just kidding. I have an 18-month-old now, so that's priority, but still got to squeeze the games in when I can. But yeah, 100%. This is prediction. Control would be something along the lines of like, in order to watch football, you have to mow the lawn. When this wasn't in place, you didn't mow the lawn. When it is in place, you mow the lawn. We took it away for Thursday night football, and of course, the lawn wasn't mowed. That would give you control. Description. We do kind of describe the behavior here, but you're looking at the wife's verbal behavior, which is her statement. If it said, what is in this scenario, description certainly is here. You're describing what the behavior is, the latency, the not doing it, all of those things. So this description. Someone said roll tide, go blue. How'd that game on New Year's Eve go last year? I was at the game. It was actually Hayes' first live football game when we beat up on Alabama last year. So just for the record. Affirmation of the consequent occurs when the whole thing happens. So you have prediction, you have description, you have verification. If I said football causes you to not mow the yard during football season, you don't mow the yard, and now I know that football season causes you to not mow the yard. Um, that's going to be affirmation of the consequent. But again, you're only looking at the wife's verbal behavior, which is her statement at the end. Answer the question being asked. Don't try to answer things that aren't being asked because when we're answering questions that are not being asked, that is when we get into some significant trouble. So cool. All right, let's look at the next one. Um, these are so long, y'all. Why did I write such long? This is why I was up all night writing questions last night because I decided to write paragraph sentence. I don't know. Okay. The organization in which you are employed has instituted a co-treatment model of pairing you. Let's try that again. We're gonna start over. The organization in which you are employed with has instituted a co-treatment model pairing you, a newly credentialed behavior analyst, with a senior colleague possessing extensive clinical tenure. Together, you complete the intake process for a client presenting with severe feeding-related behavioral pathologies. While you experience while your experience with disordered eating is limited, your co-analyst demonstrates considerable experience in this domain. Following the completion of a comprehensive functional behavior assessment, you propose the incorporation of a newer competency-based training method to enhance caregiver adherence to the intervention protocol designed by the senior analyst. In response, the analyst remarks, "We do not need to worry about that. They will not implement the procedure consistently anyway. I have conducted feeding therapy for over 15 years, and only a small portion of caregivers have ever followed the protocols I've created. The clinic-based intervention is sufficient. The analyst's verbal behavior exemplifies a departure from which of the following core philosophical assumptions? A. Selectionism, B. Pragmatism, C. Empiricism, or D. Determinism." All right. Let's look at the answer here. So there's a lot of different things happening here. But again, we're looking at the statement made by the other analyst. Well, that statement is, "We do not need to worry about that. They will not implement the procedure consistently anyway. I've conducted feeding therapy for over 15 years, hoity-toity, and only a small portion of caregivers have ever followed the protocols I've created, yada yada." Basically, what are we not abiding by? What are we departing from? We're departing from empiricism. We're not letting the data talk. Instead, we're using our experiences, we're using our previous experiences to then determine what we should do. We're not looking at the data, we're not taking an unbiased approach. In fact, you are being biased here. And I'm also going to show you how it meets the other answers. Selectionism. There's three branches. The branch that this most closely fits with is ontogenic. You probably are actually abiding by ontogenic selectionism because your past history is causing you to avoid training the caregivers, right? So you have that previous history, you're avoiding them. Again, pragmatic. It's worked for you in the past not to teach caregivers, and so you're not teaching them again. So it is pragmatic in nature. And then determinism, there's a reason, right? The reason is you've taught them in the past and they've not followed it. So you have that deterministic approach, the lawfulness of behavior. There's a reason for that behavior. That reason specifically is that you've done it in the past and it hasn't worked. So we have determinism met there. We have determinism met there. So I hope you see empiricism. Again, empiricism has those two parts. It's using data and then making sure we're taking an unbiased approach. Both of those need to be met in order for us to have empiricism. We're gonna do a couple more questions. We'll open questions in about 5 minutes, and then I have a couple of announcements. Then we'll end right around 10. So a couple more, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A. Which of the following statements most closely aligns with the descriptive goal of our science? A. Tina argues with Rachel at least once per day. You grab a pair of headphones and place them over your ears prior to walking into the clinic. B. Ice cream consumption increases in the summer. The temperature also increases in the summer. I can say that with great certainty that the temperature and ice cream consumption will both increase in the summer. C. Liz yells constantly during math class and during science class. She was given a break card during math class and no longer yells. Yelling continues during science class. Or D. Sasha and her parents, Sasha will ask her parents to borrow money at the end of the month, just like she does every month. All right. Again, this question is a slight bit difficult, but description. So we want to find the answer that most closely aligns with description. We want to find the one that is describing what is happening. Description needs to be observable and measurable. It needs to be observable and measurable. I'm just looking at the answers here, and we have a lot of varied answers, but I think it's between A and C seem to be the favorites when I'm clicking through these, and one of those is right, so we're on the right track. The best answer here is A, but let's talk about why, and I hope I can show you why the other ones don't work either. So when I look at A, Tina argues with Rachel at least once a day. I don't like this part. What is arguing? I don't know. It's not well defined. But you grab a pair of headphones and place them over your ears prior to walking in. That's descriptive. That's describing your behavior. Grabbing a pair of headphones, putting it over your ears, you are describing behavior. So I like that part. Here, I would probably say maybe because part of it I don't like, part of it I think is really, really good. So I would stay there. Let's look at B. Ice cream consumption increases. How much? I don't know. Temperature rises. How much? I don't know. We're certainly saying something, and we're making a prediction. There's correlation here. So I want you to see correlation. ice cream consumption increases in the summer, temperature increases. We can say that when temperature increases, ice cream consumption will increase, blah, blah, blah. That's correlation. That is what we have there, right? That's prediction. Correlation leads to prediction. When you look at a descriptive goal or when the question asks about a descriptive goal, you're going to have other options that it wants you to discriminate between. So you have to look at those, generally speaking. C, Liz yells constantly during math class. What does yelling look like? I don't know, right? It's not descriptive. It's telling you where it happens. It's telling you that she's given a break card. So if we're describing about the break card or we're focused on that, cool. But again, there's like this analysis here. And honestly, it's control, right? C is analytic control because we're talking about math class. And then we're talking about the break card. She doesn't yell in math class, but she's still yelling in science, where she's not getting the break card. So that is that systematic manipulation, which gives us control. C is control, control. D, Sasha will ask her parents to borrow money at the end of the month, just like she does every month. Uh, Closest, probably, maybe, to description, but not really because it's prediction. She's asked to borrow money in the past, so she's going to ask to do it again. Description would say on the 31st, Sasha asked her parents to borrow $10 or something like that, describing the behavior. I know I'm gonna get some questions that say, I thought for a control you need description. Well, cool. Then you're never gonna be able to pick description if control is one of the answers because you need description for control, right? So like when you're approaching these questions, it's not all or nothing. Yes, the best way to get control is to first describe the behavior. You're not gonna have a scenario that has all of them in it. You're gonna have a best answer. You're gonna have an answer that's description. You're gonna have an answer that's prediction. You're gonna have an answer that's control. You're gonna have to discriminate between them to figure out what the best one is. So that's that. All right, we're gonna stop, open up for questions now. Before we do that, I have a couple of quick announcements. I'm gonna turn my camera on so y'all can see my face, give these announcements. So I think a few things. Number one, good job today. I know we did some difficult questions. I do hope this was helpful. Y'all can, I hope there's some feedback. I'm gonna make it to where you can chat everyone now. Can chat meeting group. Okay, so now you can put your questions in the main chat. But so I hope this structure, this format works. This is what the boot camps will be like. Next week is going to feel a little bit more teaching heavy because instead of having the last like 5 questions be question dissection, there's literally like 23 areas. We're not going to get through all 23. I'm going to try to get through the most important ones, but it'll be scenario question, teaching example, or scenario question, definitions, examples. So we'll have teaching, we'll have application, a little bit of everything. So hope the structure is good. And next week it'll be same time, Tuesday. We'll start at 5 Pacific and then we'll continue on. So that's what we'll do there. I'll upload this recording tomorrow under boot camps. It'll be labeled domain A boot camp in your account if you're the all you need. If you purchase individually, it'll be in there too. Now just a couple of quick plugs. I have actually 2 openings for I have one group that I group tutor. We've had a couple people pass, so I have 2 openings in that group for group tutoring. If you're interested in that, you can email me and let me know. Um, Group tutoring is extra outside of the course. It's $35. I also personally offer individual tutoring. Not personally, it's through BAS, so I don't know why I said personal, but we offer individual tutoring. We have 3 tutors, myself, Maheen, and Katie. If you're interested in getting a little extra support, you can always reach out to us. This weekend, we do have Break Down the Beast. It'll be on Sunday this weekend. It starts at 7 a.m. 7 a.m. Pacific time. The link is also under the info sheet, so you can find that in there. I'll check the info sheet tomorrow to make sure it's in there. So the last one, why was D rolled out? Because D is prediction. It says there's no description there. It says she will ask to borrow money. How much? How's she asking? I don't know. But it says just like she does every month. There's correlation. Correlation leads to prediction. Prediction. Where can I find the link for Sunday? In your info sheet. All the links for everything is in the info sheet. What is the schedule for group tutoring? We're actually meeting Thursday at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. So if you're interested, I have 2 spots there. Send me an email though. It's first come, first serve. And then I actually schedule with them. We have an email chain with the 2 of them, and then we schedule during the week. But if there's enough people, I can make my own group. So when is group tutoring? I just said that. Yeah, there's no highlighter. Sorry, y'all. Um, Group tutoring is not included in all you need. We compensate our tutoring individually. So if you're interested in tutoring, email me. You can email info@behavioranalystsupervisor.com or Miko. Fun fact, I answer both of those. So you don't have to tag both emails. You could just email me. I answer both those. Bree also answers emails. Kevin answers emails, but it's mostly Bree and myself now. But yeah. Our breakdown the beast in the all, yeah, they're in the same spot. If the link isn't there yet, I'll put it there. I don't typically put the links until last minute. We had some issues with people sharing links, you know. Group tutoring is $35 per individual. So if you have a group, I can set you up. You can also join my group. But yeah, so it's $35. It's about 55 minutes long. Last week's Breakdown the Beast was uploaded. It's uploaded under episode 5. So I just said when group tutoring is done. Do you have questions over there, Bree?
Where do they find them all?
The mock? Oh, the mock that's included in this will be added at the. If you're testing soon, email me and I'll make sure you get it before then. But there's going to be a mini mock added to your those of you who purchase individually. All you need to have it. It'll be added that last week, that 10th week. But if you're testing soon, email me and I can hook you up.
Mock exams on the horizon.
Any new mock exams? Y'all, you know how many questions I wrote for tonight? I'm just kidding. Yes, there's new stuff coming. We have a I always like hesitate saying these things because I don't know Kevin's editing schedule, but some things that we have coming. I've completed a few additional mini mocks, one on IOA, one on compound schedules. We will have a second set of mini mocks. Whoa, so excited about that. So we have mini mocks A through I. We have a second set coming, so a second set of A through I. And then next year, not this year, we'll probably have two additional full length mock exams done by March. Depending on if I get a house or not. We got an offer on our house, y'all. Those of you that break down the beast this weekend, those people offered. We accepted the offer, thank goodness, but now they haven't signed the paperwork. So do I actually have an offer? I don't really know. It's the first time I sold a house. I don't know how it works. Anyhow, will there be okay, answered that. This series is every Tuesday for 10 weeks. In the future, we'll do it a 5 week period. If you're part of the All You Need, we will meet Wednesday as in tomorrow at 8. That'll be a half hour roughly. Sometimes it's a little longer, but I'll answer questions from this, and then we usually do a mini lesson. I will say that call has to move. I joined a kickball league again, so we've got to move the day of that call. I apologize, but I'll let you know when that is. So, cool. Let's see. What else? No, sorry, 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. Oh, there's too many time zones. No, remember the updated mini mocks are not updated yet. I don't know when. We don't have a timeline, but it's hopefully soon. But not now. How many full mocks does the All You Need package come with? 4 full-length mock exams, not one mini mock on each domain, 5 additional mini mocks on things like stimulus equivalents, uh, and then there's like 4 mixed minis, and then there's even a holiday one, so maybe 6 additional mini mocks, a study guide videos, any live event we do in the future outside of tutoring. Yeah, tomorrow there is it's like a call it office hours. So if you have questions, come tomorrow at 8 Eastern time. The link's in your account. We don't reset the mocks typically because retaking them just leads to memorization. I don't want you to memorize these things. So if there's extenuating circumstances, email us, but something we have to talk like with Kevin and whatever about. So any tips for graphs? Well, we have a mini lesson on each experimental design, so you can certainly check that out if that's something you're interested in. But specifically when it comes to graphs, I recommend knowing when to use each type of graph. I think that is super important. So certainly you have to know when to use each type of graph. And then, so that's kind of the biggest thing you want to look for there, when to use each type of graph. We'll certainly do graphs, and that's going to be week what 4. So week 4 we'll do graphs. Section H is question dissection. So if you're struggling with section H, it's almost solely question dissection. That means we have to really focus on analyzing and dissecting those questions. looking at why the question or why each answer is correct versus each answer is wrong. I would recommend potentially, if it's in your budget, looking at a diagnostic tutoring session where we can go through 10-ish questions together, get an idea of what you're not analyzing, or when you're doing things like we did tonight, really pay attention to um, the feedback, why a question is right, why the other ones aren't, your explanations, so on and so forth. After you take a mock to see the feedback, click the dashboard button. There's actually a video on the dashboard that shows you how to access your feedback, but it's pretty simple. From your dashboard, you just scroll down to the mock you took, and then there's a statistics button. Click the statistics button, and it will allow you to review those answers. You can unmute yourself.
Okay, hi Miko. So my third exam, it was about school-based settings. So I was really good on my second exam. So on the third one, it was like a lot of target behavior in one scenario. So I was so confused which one to pick. Like also like the teacher had deficit on teaching skill and we have like student non-compliance and another thing. So I was so confusing. And then also they asked about unwanted effect. What is a commonly used unwanted effect of punishment? I was so panicked because escape and avoidance is so common, but emotion and aggressive is too common too. So then become H's were my weak points on my
Yeah,
30.
H is hard, and honestly, there's always going to be something in the scenario that makes, one of the answers better than the others. And so you really just have to look at the question specifically and really analyze like what in the question is gonna make this answer better or not. So if you purchased this course individually, yeah, the Tuesdays are what's included, and then that mini mock on week 10. If you have the all you need, you have everything except for individual tutoring. Someone asked, can I do specific ethics questions regarding like genders and things like that? We do have some of that programmed during the ethics week. So yeah, group tutoring, we do a lot of things. We can cover a lot of different things, but okay. Do you think the board will test some questions regarding DEI since it was recently removed? So, fun fact, though DEI was recently removed, they just hid it somewhere else. So they removed the public-facing requirements. Your ethical code still has uh, DEI requirements, though it's now a loaded term for whatever reason. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's really annoying. I don't know. I don't know. I hate it. Whatever. The board chickened out. Let's be honest. Like it's ridiculous. But regardless, they took it off of the things like the CE requirement and they took it off the coursework requirement. They left it on your ethics code though. So I don't know. Do you need to know it? I would say yes, because it's on the ethical code, but you know, could you tell I'm annoyed? Cool. All right. And then okay, so last things before I set you free to go be a bird and fly away. Probably go to bed is what I'm gonna do. But next week, Tuesday, same time, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific will be here. Section B, it's going to be similar to tonight because it's the same format, so obviously be similar. Questions throughout, you can always ask. If you have a question, you can email us throughout the week. If you purchase this, you like the format, you like our questions, you can always upgrade to the all you need package. You just need to email me so I can give you a link to pay use for the difference. You wouldn't pay for the full course, you pay for the difference. I'll upload the recording tomorrow. So I always get at least 5 Instagram messages and emails about the recording. I'll upload it tomorrow. It'll be there by the end of the day. We have to upload it into our system. It goes through this whole like whatever process. I don't know if y'all watch Kevin Hart, but it's like my bank account is checking his savings. I don't know how I'm gonna take 2 3 business. I'm just kidding. We just upload it and then it takes a minute because it has to like it does something in our video system. And so then we go ahead and put it into the account. But I'll have it up tomorrow, is what I'm trying to say there. But if you haven't seen that Kevin Hart skit, it's so funny. Yeah, it's so funny. That's one of my favorite ones. And then the ostrich, why would you throw a pen at it? It's so anyways. So okay, quick question. If a client is underage and wants to be acknowledged by the Yeah, if the client's underage, you do what the parents say. So no gray area there. Always about what the parents say if the client's under 18. Cool. All right, y'all. I hope this was helpful. We'll be back. If again this is something y'all like, we will continue to do it. But we will at least do it for the next 10 weeks, and then likely the next time we do it, it'll be a 5 week program, twice a week, just so it's more condensed for people who are testing sooner. But we learn things as we go. But we always like feedback, and so provide that feedback. Cool. All right, y'all. Take it easy. See ya.